Yo, what is going on? How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the Risen Fallen podcast. I am your host, Mark Hendrickson. If you're brand new to this show, then what you can expect is open and authentic conversations about things like mental health, self-development, how to get your life moving in the right direction. If you're not feeling good about where you are right now, at least having the confidence knowing you're moving one step closer every single day, 1% more close to the person you'd like to be, the life you'd like to lead, and everything else that you'd like to hear about. And so how is everybody doing today? It's Monday, May 18th as this airs. It's a little bit early as I record this. It's Friday as I record this. I just got home from work, and this weekend I'm going to try and do a little bit of fishing. And so I'm pre-recording this episode so I can skedaddle tomorrow and chill out, maybe do some fishing for a couple days. And so if you're brand new to this show, you didn't know, I do home renovations. I'm a carpenter by trade. I also do jujitsu, and I train. I like to run. I like to lift weights. I like to stay active. And so being active, pushing myself, pushing my body, and pushing my limits is something that I am, really enthusiastic about, to say the least. And so a few months back, I got surgery done on my shoulder. I had a labrum tear, a slap tear, I think they call it. And so they went in and fixed that stuff up. And for the last little while, I've just been doing some physiotherapy, a lot of stretching, a little bit of light band work, but mainly just trying to regain my range of motion. And as I'm talking to one of my physiotherapists, actually, I was talking to Patrick Gu. Shout out to Patrick. He's been on the podcast before. I'm going to try and maybe get him on the podcast as well, but he's been helping me with my shoulder rehab a little bit. Did a little session with me, gave me some exercises. He's been following up with me ever since then. And so one of the things that I talked to him about, and maybe I'll get him on the podcast to chat about this. This is something that he talks a lot about in his content as well, is, first off, I'm going to talk about it in regards to my shoulder and fitness, and then we're going to kind of realize that this is very applicable to every other aspect of life as well. And so when he's helping me with my shoulder, I go in, he's basically saying, like, what has your surgeon told you? What has your physio with your surgeon said? And we're just kind of running through the different movements I've been doing, the different movements I'm able to do, trying to maybe like experiment and see if there's any movements that I can do that I didn't know about, those types of things. And naturally, my tendency is to, if I need to increase my range of motion, with my shoulder, that includes stretching out my pecs, stretching out my back, being able to kind of push my shoulder into different positions. And so I'm sitting here trying to increase my range of motion by pretty much going to the maximum capacity that my body feels comfortable at, and then pushing it a little bit further from there. When it comes to weights, they call this progressive overload, just consistently like dialing it a little bit further, find your maximum, and then just try and go a little bit more than that. And I think that in many ways in life, that kind of mindset, that mind state of just like, I'm going to progressively make this more and more difficult for myself, and my body will slowly adjust. I think that's a very useful, kind of way to push yourself slowly towards progress. I said it's a very useful way. I didn't say it's the only way or maybe the way, whatever it could be. And the reason I say that is because not that I am, endorsing, staying in your comfort zone and never pushing yourself and never making progress. But the fact that, progress, it should be like a gentle stretch. It shouldn't be like something that you're forcing. It shouldn't be something that's going to put you at risk or injury, or, at the end of the day, you have a ligament or you have a muscle you're trying to stretch out, and you're stretching it way too far and you're pushing it, you could snap that shit. You could really cause yourself some damage. And so what Patrick talks to me about in the first session that we do is basically this idea where he's essentially explaining to me that I have to build competency in the already achieved range of motions before my nervous system kind of grants me a little bit more trust. If you're constantly pushing yourself, if you're constantly going to the very maximum that you can possibly do, then your nervous system will always kind of be in this limbo state of like, yo, do I need to start holding this guy back a little bit because maybe he's going to cause me a little bit too much damage, and it's not going to be a progressive overload. It's going to be more of just an overload, and we're going to damage something. You really honestly have to think of it as like a subconscious mind. Your nervous system is completely different than, your conscious mind being like, yo, we're not able to do this. Your nervous system is almost like in the background, like behind that conscious mind. It's like your body's subconscious. And so there's this idea of just building trust with the supervisor, with your nervous system. You could think of your nervous system as a supervisor. And so this idea he's trying to get across to me is to build competency with the already achieved range of motion. Building more competency with where you're already at in life. And therefore, your nervous system will reward you and think, okay, we're safe. We're not being pushed past this dangerous threshold. We can trust it, and we can give you a little bit more of a leash. It's kind of the exact same way as walking a dog. When you're first walking a dog, you keep them real tight to your hip, and you never really let them stray too much. They get distracted. They want to sniff this. They want to smell that. They want to do this. And then slowly, as trust develops between the owner and the dog, well, then the leash can get a little bit longer. You can get like 3 more feet, 5 more feet, 10 more feet, until you're at the point where you don't even need this leash. You're trusted. You're able to explore. You're able to do your thing. You're able to move. You're able to work. You're able to do everything that you need to do without these kind of restrictive boundaries set on you, And so it is kind of something that, I think a lot of that is kind of self-explanatory, but it is just something to really think about, because if you're somebody who, maybe you're struggling with substance abuse, maybe you don't exercise, maybe you don't, your life is in shambles, or it feels like it is. And you decide to yourself, after reading a few self-help books and listening to the right podcasts, you go, I'm going to completely change my life tomorrow. I'm going to wake up at 4 o'clock. I'm going to go for a 2-hour run. I'm going to sit in a cold plunge. I'm going to eat X amount of calories. I'm going to do this, that, the next thing. You're going to wake up the next morning and your nervous system is just literally going to be like, buddy, there's absolutely no way that this is happening. You might be able to force yourself through it, but the entire time, your hormones, your thoughts, everything, your energy levels will be completely inconsistent with what you're doing. You can force yourself through it. I've been there. I've done it. It's not going to be comfortable, but you might even get it done. You might do the whole wake up, you do your workout, eat perfectly, build your business, work on your finances, work on your social media, read every single night, meditate, journal, completely be a new human. But the entire time, your nervous system and your subconscious is going to be like, what the fuck is going on? When are we going back to, when is this madness going to end? And when are we going to go back to what we were doing before? Right? Like, it's trying to find a balance. It's trying to find like homeostasis, I think is the term. And so this idea is to master the basics before you start stretching yourself out. And this can definitely feel like a setback, especially if you're somebody that is constantly pushing yourself. Because mastering the basics, it's not a setback, but it feels like it is, because the workload feels a little bit, it feels like, hey, I'm going to start getting going. I'm going to start doing this. And then, it really is just the small, minute details of just achieving or building competency in the already achieved. You already have a routine set up. Everyone has this idea, I need to start a routine. When in reality, you have a routine. What you do every single day is already your routine. When you wake up is routine. When you go to bed is routine. What you do, you might feel like, I don't have a routine, because you constantly just kind of wake up whenever you feel like it. Maybe it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. or whatever it is, and you just kind of saunter around, you do your thing, you're rushing before work, you go and do work. Like these things, that is the routine you've chosen to follow. And so mastering that, if you were to want to build on something like that, you start thinking about how can I master the basics? What am I already doing? I'm waking up, I'm going to bed, I'm eating these things, I'm doing this. Maybe I exercise 2, 3 times a week, going to work. Mastering the basics looks like, okay, we're going to dial in this wake up time, this evening time. If you're waking up at 9, it doesn't go to a 4 a.m. start right away. It's like, how about we wake up at 9 every day? Build a routine, like build some sort of consistent, something that your nervous system can get used to. And this is something that when I used to work in a restaurant, dude, I would be, you close the restaurant up at like 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe chill at the bar, chill and drink and whatever, like hang out, do your work part, and then it's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock by the time you get home. I wasn't even waking up until like 11 o'clock the next day because I had to start at noon, that kind of thing or whatever it was. And so slowly I had to, 5 minutes a day, dial it back. So instead of 11 o'clock, it was like, hey, let's go to 10:45. Let's go to 10:30. Let's go to 10:15. Let's go to 10, and slowly chip away at it until your nervous system slowly adjusts. This is a form of kind of mastering the basics before you just kind of jump right in to the 4 a.m. wake ups or the whatever it is, right? And the exact same way with, you want to start running. Mastering the basics. Go for a walk. Go for a walk every day until going for a walk feels way too fucking easy. And then you're going to be like, oh, I can start running 10Ks. But it's like realistically, you might be able to run a 10K and then the next day your body's going to be like, yo, what the fuck did we just do? Like it's going to go through the exact same loop. And so it's like, go for a walk every single day. And then when that feels way too easy, go for a walk, and then during that walk, run for a kilometer, just 1 kilometer, and then do that every single day. So you're just running a kilometer every single day. It doesn't feel like much. If you share it on your social media, people will be like, all right, cool, dude, 1 kilometer. But, slowly you get your nervous system used to that. 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers. You're doing 2K every single day. You're doing 3K every single day until you get to the point slowly where you can bump that up. Now, of course, I can speak from experience here. It's very tempting to just be like, look, I was a former athlete. In high school, I could run this, I could do that, I could do, so I'm just going to start off with a 5K or a 10K. I'm going to do that. And then maybe the next day you wake up sore, but you're like, I'm going to do it anyway. And then you do it, you force yourself through this over and over and over again. And yes, like I said, you might be able to achieve the input. You might be able to achieve the 5K a day. That's what you're inputting as your efforts, but you're not going to achieve the output. You're not going to feel good. And realistically, when you're asking yourself, why do I work out? It's because I want to feel good on a daily basis. And any of these things, really, like, it's like, why do I want to wake up early? Why do I want to read more? Why do I want to exercise more? Why do I want to add things to my life? And it's because most of the time, I want to feel better. You want to feel better. And so if you want the outcome of feeling better, a lot of the times, and again, this maybe comes from the machismo, like kind of, bro, Chad, growing up, whatever it is, like this idea of like, no, I can, look, maybe you need to do this like progressive nervous system adjustment, but me, oh, I can just force my way through this. And that is my mentality with a lot of things. But this is one of the very first times having this shoulder surgery at 30 years old. It's one of the very first times where I'm like, okay, I should maybe take this seriously. This is something that, I've tried muscling my way through this. I've tried forcing my way through this injury for years and years and years. And maybe that's not what's happening. Maybe that's not the right way to go about it. And perhaps we need to build a little bit more competency with what we've already got achieved. Master the basics. It's the exact same way in regards to your mental health. When it comes to, controlling your emotions, to actually be able to control your emotions and not let them control you, what that means is you're going to have to actually slow down enough in your life to notice your emotions, to notice how they make you feel physically, to notice, okay, I can feel like my jaw clench, my muscles clench up. Okay, I'm getting mad, I'm getting angry. My nervous system is a little bit overloaded. Something is feeling like a threat. Something is feeling, getting a little bit more in touch with your nervous system and understanding how these things work. And this is not my specialty. This is not, but what is the opposite, forcing myself through these things. And so maybe you're like me and you relate to that. Maybe, you know, a lot of the times, even in like a spiritual sense, we're asking God for so much more. uh, you could think of it as territory. You could think of it as, we're asking for so much more abundance from God. And we're not even using the resources we have already appropriately. And so, like, what is the reason to reward you with more when you're not actually being grateful for and showing respect to what you already have? Right. And so you might not have the range of motion that you want with your legs, with your arms, with your muscles, with your hips or whatever. You might not have the range of motion that you want, but you do have some motion. You do have some movement. And so what can you do? Master what's available to you. And then when you add on to it, it's second nature. It's already built in. It's like literally like the idea of like walk and chew gum. You can't walk and chew gum if you don't know how to fucking chew gum and you don't know how to walk. You have to be able to master both of those things to then just be able to do both of them simultaneously without thought. And so maybe you have something that's very cut and dry like I do. You have a shoulder injury and you want to increase your range of motion. You're trying to reach further physically, literally reach further. But, it's important to focus on building, and I use the word confidence, but it's more than that. Because I can say, oh, I'm confident doing like hanging on a bar. I'm confident doing a bench press. I'm confident. But in reality is I'm not adept at it right now. Because of certain circumstances, there's certain things that my body, you know, maybe is willing to do or able to do, but it's not going to be great. It's not going to do good, for my nervous system or for the labrum that's still the cartilage that still needs repair. Where in your life are you stretching to reach further where you need to actually build more competence, more competency, and more confidence in where you already are? What basics have you been avoiding for far too long that have been putting you at risk of injury or somebody else? Maybe just think about this week. Your goal is not to add like 10 new things to your life. In fact, you might not even be at the place right now where you're able to add to your life. That's a lot of us. Like a lot of us are literally like, we just feel like constantly we're like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? We're just constantly just like always on the move, in the hustle and bustle, in the rat race. And so maybe when you're asking yourself, what do I need to add? Perhaps it's more competency with what you already have. How can you make your life right now more efficient? And when and almost I want to say more comfortable. Part of me wants to say more comfortable. How can you make your life more comfortable? And part of that is I hesitate to say it because the idea of a comfort zone when we're talking about your conscious mind is bad. But when it comes to your subconscious, that comfort zone actually is important. Your nervous system, I believe, I could be completely wrong on this because I'm a fucking carpenter, but your nervous system is kind of part of your subconscious your inner, it's not on the forefront of your brain. It's not part of your conscious. You can't think your nervous system into a better place. Maybe you can. I don't know. Some Buddhist monks probably disagree with me on that, but it's like you kind of almost have to show your nervous system some proof. Your subconscious mind some proof, because like forcing it with hype, forcing it, like hyping yourself up, being like, I'm totally able to do this. Like, your nervous system does not need a hype man. Your nervous system needs to be able to see you and understand, we can trust this guy. He's given us proof. He's going to take care of it. He's going to be responsible. This idea of forcing progress can a lot of the time create resistance in our own bodies, in our own minds. And so, again, before we consider adding to our lives, I need to add this to my routine. Maybe what we need to add is more competency with what we're already doing. And I think that that's a beautiful place to wrap this up, because I feel like I'm starting to get repetitive. And so, look, I don't know. If you guys enjoy this episode, if it's changed the way you think, if it entertained you, if you enjoyed it at all, if you want to hear more stuff like this, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, rate it 5 stars, leave a little review, and let me know what you guys think about this, in your review, in your comment. Or if you want to hear me maybe chat with Patrick about this on the podcast, let me know about that. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to go and enjoy a weekend of fishing. Catch you guys on Monday. Much love. Peace out. Love you all. Bye.